All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to tackle something pretty interesting, if I do say so myself.
Whoa, I'm intrigued already. Lay it on me.
Okay, so we're cracking open Chapter X Feet of BNS 2023. It's all about offenses, things that affect public health, safety, decency, morals, that whole shebang.
The nitty-gritty of keeping society running smoothly. I'm listening.
Exactly. And you might think, well, how does this dusty old chapter apply to me? But trust me, these laws are way more relevant to our daily lives than you might think.
It's like the rules of the game we all play, even if we don't always realize it.
Right. So to kick things off, let's talk about public nuisances.
Public nuisances, all right. Hit me with it.
So Section 270 defines it as, get this, any act causing common injury, danger, or annoyance.
Common annoyance. That's pretty broad, isn't it?
Right, like what exactly counts as common annoyance?
Good question. It's open to interpretation, for sure.
I mean, could my neighbor blasting 80s hair metal at 2 a.m. be considered a public nuisance?
It very well could be. It all boils down to whether it significantly messes with the comfort or well-being of the community.
So that late night jam session, especially if it's a regular thing, could land them in hot water.
It's definitely possible. Think of it like this. If it impacts a whole bunch of people, it crosses the line from personal preference to a public issue.
Makes sense. Like imagine a factory spewing out nasty fumes. People nearby can't even breathe.
Right, that's a clear-cut case. It affects the health and well-being of a whole group, not just one person's taste in music.
So it's all about finding that balance between what individuals do and how it affects everyone else.
Exactly. It's a classic tug-of-war between personal freedom and the good of the community. And speaking of the community's well-being, that brings us to the next big thing in this chapter. Public health.
Public health, okay. I'm all ears.
Specifically, sections 271 through 273. They dive deep into stopping the spread of infectious diseases.
Infectious diseases. Quarantine, masks, the whole 9 yards.
Good.
Something we've all gotten pretty familiar with lately.
Right. And these sections cover all that, including how and when quarantine measures can be put in place.
Quarantine. It makes you think, doesn't it? Have you ever stopped to consider the legal side of all those public health measures?
It's easy to overlook, but it's all there, laid out in these laws. Balancing individual freedom with keeping everyone safe during outbreaks.
That's like a high-stakes balancing act.
Absolutely. It reminds me of those cholera outbreaks back in the 19th century. They hit cities hard.
Cholera outbreaks. Wow, that must have been scary.
Oh, they were devastating. And they forced authorities to put strict quarantine laws into action to try and stop the spread.
Those laws probably weren't very popular, I imagine.
You're right, they sparked a lot of debate. But, they played a huge role in getting those outbreaks under control.
It really puts things in perspective. Even seemingly small actions, like following those quarantine guidelines, can have a ripple effect.
Couldn't agree more. It's a collective effort, that's for sure. And on that note, let's move on to another critical piece of this puzzle, food and drug safety.
Food and drug safety. Okay, now we're talking about something that affects everyone.
Right. We're diving into sections 274 through 278 here, and they really emphasize how serious it is to mess with or mislabel food and drugs.
It's scary to think someone would intentionally sell stuff that's harmful or straight up lie about what's in it.
It's a sobering thought, but these laws are here to protect us. Think about it. What if a company swapped out a safe ingredient for something cheaper but toxic, just to save a few bucks?
Yikes. People could get really sick without even realizing it.
Absolutely. That's why regulations and penalties are so important. They're there to discourage that kind of reckless behavior and protect the public's health.
It's like a safety net, making sure what we consume is actually safe.
Exactly. And Section 278, for instance, really hammers home the consequences of selling a drug as something it's not.
Like passing off a sugar pill as a life-saving medication? That's messed up.
It is. The potential for harm is huge, and these laws act as a deterrent, but also provide a way to hold those responsible accountable for their actions.
Right, so it's not just about prevention, but also about justice. Now, we've talked about harmful products, but what about threats to our environment?
Good point. That's where sections 279 and 280 come in. They target those who pollute our water and air.
Okay, so now we're talking about the bigger picture, the environment we all share.
Exactly. And here's where the link between public health and the environment becomes crystal clear. Think about a factory dumping chemical waste into a river.
Oh, that's just wrong. It contaminates the water, hurts the fish, and then what? People drink that water, right?
Oh, exactly. It's a chain reaction. People who rely on that river, whether it's for drinking water or fishing, could suffer the consequences.
That's like a domino effect. Polluting one part of the environment can have ripple effects on public health and the entire community.
Precisely. It's all interconnected. And speaking of actions with serious consequences, let's shift gears to reckless endangerment.
Reckless endangerment. Okay, that sounds intense. What exactly are we talking about here?
Well, sections 281 through 291 cover a whole bunch of offenses, from reckless driving to messing around with boats, even putting up fake navigation signals. It's a pretty long list.
Wow, that's quite a range. It seems like they're trying to anticipate any possible danger and put a stop to it.
It does, doesn't it? At the heart of it all is a disregard for the safety of others. It's like they're saying, hey, we know people can be careless, so we're setting these rules to protect everyone.
Makes sense. So give me an example. What would be considered reckless endangerment?
All right, picture this. You're on a ship at night, relying on those navigation lights to guide you safely. Now imagine someone decides to mess around and put up a fake signal.
Oh, that's terrifying. You could have ships colliding in the dark.
Exactly. It's a recipe for disaster. Or think about someone driving like a maniac on a busy street, weaving through traffic, ignoring speed limits. That's reckless endangerment, too.
Yeah, it's not just about their own safety. It's about everyone else on the road.
Precisely. These laws are all about preventing that kind of behavior and making sure people are held responsible when their actions put others at risk.
It's like drawing a line in the sand. This far and no further. Okay, so we've talked about physical safety, but what about something a little more delicate, like obscenity and public decency?
Ah, yes. Sections 294 through 296, always a hot topic.
Definitely. So how does the law actually define obscenity, and what are the consequences for, putting that stuff out there, especially when kids are involved?
Well, it's tricky, to be honest. Defining obscenity is like nailing jelly to a wall. It's subjective and changes over time, depending on societal norms and values.
I get it. What might have been considered totally outrageous a few decades ago might be no big deal today. So where do you draw the line?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The law tries to give some guidelines, but in the end, it often comes down to context and what the community considers acceptable.
Right. So it's a balancing act between freedom of expression and protecting public decency, especially when it comes to kids.
Exactly. It's a conversation that needs to keep happening, weighing individual rights against the need to protect society, especially those who are most vulnerable. But hey, let's switch gears for a bit. How about we dive into something that might seem a little lighter compared to obscenity? Lotteries.
Lotteries. All right, let's roll the dice. Section 297, right? I mean, some people might think, lotteries, harmless fun, what's the big deal? But there's more to it, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. State-run lotteries, those are generally fine. But when you get into unregulated gambling, that's where things can get messy.
So it's not just about stopping people from enjoying a bit of chance. It's about preventing the potential downsides.
Right. Financial ruin, organized crime, those are real risks. By setting up its own lotteries or authorizing specific ones, the state tries to create a controlled environment, with fairness, transparency, and protection for people who might be vulnerable to exploitation.
It's like the difference between playing poker with friends for fun and walking into some shady underground gambling den.
Perfect analogy. Higher stakes, bigger risks, and a much greater need for oversight to keep things in check.
So Section 297 is all about making sure the fun doesn't turn into something harmful.
Precisely. Keeping those lines clear between harmless fun and the potential for real trouble. It's not just about running the lottery itself. Section 297 goes even further, talking about promoting or advertising those unauthorized games.
So it's like nipping it in the bud, trying to stop these potentially harmful activities before they even get started.
You got it. Think of it as a preventative measure to protect people from getting sucked into schemes that could hurt them financially.
Smart. It's all about keeping people safe.
Exactly. And as we go through this chapter, it's amazing how these different offenses, from polluting a river to running an illegal lottery, all seem to be connected.
Right, like they're all part of the same story.
They are. They all fit into the bigger picture of a well-functioning society. And these laws, with their focus on public health, safety, decency, and even morality, they're like the glue that holds it all together.
It's like we've been peeking behind the scenes and seeing the machinery that keeps society running smoothly.
Exactly. But here's the thing. This machinery isn't set in stone. It has to change as society changes and faces new challenges.
Like how?
Well, think about technology. It's transformed how we communicate, do business, even how we build relationships. And that has a huge impact on the law and how it deals with new forms of harmful behavior.
So true, like cyberbullying, Online scams, all that stuff, spreading misinformation on social media, those are all new problems that need new solutions.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important for all of us as citizens to stay informed, think critically about these laws, and participate in the conversation about how to best balance individual freedoms with the collective good in this ever-changing world.
It's a good reminder that laws aren't just a set of rules handed down from somewhere. They reflect our values and change with us.
And we all have a part in shaping them.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Chapter 53 of BNS 2023, we want to leave you with a thought-provoking question.
What role do you see yourself playing in shaping the future of these laws? How can we make sure they continue to serve the best interests of individuals and society as a whole?
It's a big question, but definitely worth thinking about, discussing, and most importantly, acting on.
Because at the end of the day, it's through informed discussion and taking action that we can create a just and fair society for everyone. It's wild how much ground Chapter XUV covers, right? From little things like noise complaints to serious stuff like illegal lotteries.
It really shows how all these seemingly different parts of the law are connected in the end.
Yeah, like it's trying to build this framework for a well-ordered society.
Yeah.
Tackling anything that could throw off the balance between individual freedoms and what's good for everyone.
And like we've been talking about, that framework has to adapt as society's norms and values change, right?
Oh, absolutely. Think about it. The idea of what's obscene has totally shifted over time.
So true. Stuff that would have been considered scandalous a few decades ago might be completely normal today.
Yeah. And with the internet and social media, it's gotten even trickier to figure out how to regulate content and protect public decency.
Right, because you have to weigh free speech against protecting people, especially kids, from harmful stuff.
A constant balancing act, that's for sure. It all comes back to us, though, As citizens, we have a responsibility to be part of shaping these laws.
We can't just sit back and expect things to magically fix themselves.
Exactly. This deep dive has been a journey through some fascinating and complex legal territory.
A lot to unpack, for sure.
But this is just the starting point. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep those discussions going.
Because the more we talk about these things, the better equipped we are to build a society that's fair, just, and safe for everyone.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We hope you've learned some new things and maybe even sparked some curiosity about the legal world around us.
Keep those minds engaged and keep on exploring. Until next time.